This is. I mean, this is the C.E.5 having sort of reduced. I reduced this down to their and from their sort of introduction to their working group protocols. So this project is a scientific, diplomatic, and humanitarian endeavour, and requires a non-prejudiced view towards any and all extraterrestrial peoples visiting the Earth. These efforts are expended on behalf of all conscious, intelligent people throughout the universe. Unity amongst the group, that's quite important, ongoing development of freedom from fear and prejudice, unity of purpose and action, peaceful and altruistic intentions, and the realisation of oneness of mind and intrinsic unity of all people. These are sort of basic universal values, you know. These qualities constitute the foundation of the C.E.5 initiative and are it's quite important that, are the prerequisites of success. This is all quite basic stuff. If you look sort of natural law, universal law, go read Alfred Weber's book, who wrote the first book on sort of exopolitics, it's all this sort of stuff, and these are just basics. As a planet, we're stuck into quagmires of war and these sort of representations of ego battles that go on the planet. But you know, if you take this off planet, you know, whole anti-gravity quantum sort of look at things, then all this sort of makes sense and is fairly obvious. WG means this, it's a working group document. The working group coordinator, in a spirit of consultation and with goals of consensus, coordinates the working group, and in the event of a confirmed contact, provides cohesion and leadership for the group. All protocols which here follow are performed with the above ideals and principles incorporated into these protocols. This is quite an important bit. It is certain that the spirit of the group, its intentions, motivations and unity is the foundation for contact with extraterrestrial intelligence and transcends any specific protocols, important as they may be. And I thought that was a really important point. So, you know, we can do all the work that we want, we can read all the bump we want from groups that have had success with this sort of stuff, but ultimately it's sort of the group cohesion and the intent of what we want that works out. And this sort of stuff doesn't matter. This sort of stuff's a template because we don't know. None of us know what we're doing. No one's got the monopoly on ET contact or how to do it. You know, people are sort of trying and putting ideas out there. So again, it's how do you take the experience that a contactee or experiencer has to then build that into a group scenario. What would you do if a saucer landed or some entities appeared physically or dimensionally in front of you? How would you react? You know, are we prepared for that? Is there anything in here or any document that we could produce that could prepare you for that? And the answer is there isn't. You won't know until it happens, but it has. You know, it has happened to people. I've met people that have been on C.E.5. I've met 2 or 3 people that have been on C.E.5 that I think are really honest people. I don't know if I totally believe if Greer told me he had some sort of contact, because he's quite a PR sort of, you know, he certainly knows how to do his own PR, but I've met people that have been on C.E.5 expeditions and they swear that they've had really quite profound stuff happen, so it's, you know, it is a possibility. So that's the working group protocols, that's the document if you want to have a read of that. There's enough time to do that. One reason why we chose this venue, or why when I first spoke to Steve and we discussed all this, is because Steve's background, he's been over and done the whole thing, the Monroe Institute test. This is the HemiSync stuff that Evelyn asked the name of. And Bob Monroe basically found a way of using it's slightly offset sounds that go on via headphones that trigger you into certain spaces, and it actually gets it's quite a strong and profound thing, especially if you play them sort of at night, you know, you've got the right, if you've got a really good quality headphones and stuff, because it's all based on frequency. So as you may have known if you've looked around your rooms, this venue is set up for HemiSync insofar as each room has a piped in set of headphones where I think everyone then can be on the same, you know, HemiSync functions on these different levels of recording. They go all the way up to sort of, is it 33?
It's gateway.
Yeah.
It starts off with, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Steve's got all this sort of stuff. So you basically choose, you go through these levels, and you know, until you feel comfortable. And one of which is contact with, one's called contact with beings, I think. And there's various other things. There's things like soul retrieval. It gets quite weird. But if you want to try that out, you can speak to Steve and do that. The point is that we have this idea that, as well, if we're, instead of just a Skywatch, then we augment, or we add on to the Skywatch, we add on night vision technology. If you've got night vision technology that is now becoming quite widespread, you can pick up fairly cheap versions, where if you're going back even 10 or 15 years, if you wanted a proper generation 2, 3 night vision scope or headset. You had to import it from Russia, you had to sneakily get it from the USA, and they were pretty expensive. There was lots of dodgy stuff that came over in the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Berlin Wall and stuff. The military sold loads of stuff, so there was a glut of stuff came over then, and much of that has filtered out into the market as well, and is being used for this sort of purpose.
How much does the stuff cost now? Just interesting.
Cheaper. Years ago, it's probably about 600, 700, 800 quid for a pair, and now you can probably pick up even a second-hand pair for like 300. A decent, really decent, because obviously it's due to the lenses on them. And yeah, you can pick up half decent.
It's more the tubes that you pay for. So you've basically got two sorts of night vision now. You've got a digital stuff that's come around much more recently that uses computer circuitry to takes the photons that are coming from the night sky, infrared, and it basically gives you a digital representation of that. So it converts the light, converts the photons into a digital representation, just like your computer does, puts it onto a screen. And I tried one last night, and you can sort of tell that compared to the previous, which is the tube generation. So the original ones, you can pay anything, to be honest, now, because the tube technology has rapidly got better. So you can second hand, you probably pay a bit more than the Bridget said. You can get the digital ones for sort of 300 or 400 quid, but if you want the traditional tube technology, then you're talking probably about £2 for a decent set of night goggles with the generation tubes. You've got to watch though, that if you buy second hand, you have to watch, because for UFO skywatching, which interestingly, me and Steve went to Birmingham to see the biggest distributor of night vision technology that's in the UK, Cobra Optics, and they have huge. They used to actually advertise in UFO magazine, Graham Burns, back in Graham Burns, and he said so they have as much business now from people doing this sort of thing. There's loads more people doing this than actually you know about.
Do you know Kim Carlsberg's now got a place in Arizona, Skywatch?
She does her own Skywatch thing, yeah. So she probably knows a bit about the technology is actually quite a minefield. So when you to try and work your way through what the best technology is for what purpose. The one clue is, if you want to get some, is if you're going to get the non-digital sort, make sure you check the tubes out first, because the tubes are actually coated in a special UV paint which the photons bounce off. And if you have one black mark, it's one where it's been manufactured, you can get these black spots. They're called black spots, and a lot of the Russian stuff came over, and when the Berlin Wall fell down, had these sort of degraded black spots in. And of course, if you're looking at a night sky, you need a perfect sort of resolution, and you need not. If you see these black spots, you're going to mistake it for something else, so you have to be a bit careful. If everyone's interested in getting some, I can help you a bit, guide you into what sort of things to get. But so coming back to the point with this venue, the whole idea, if we're going to add night vision technology on, that's already sort of shortcutting this whole process of contact, because you no longer have to stand and stare in a field. If you spot something, you can get it on, you can get it recorded with your night vision equipment, and you can even zoom, some of the equipment you can even zoom in a little bit closer and start to see the outline of whatever you're looking at, so you can tell if it's a satellite or a plane or it's something a bit more strange. Then the whole idea was, well, how do we also sort of expand consciousness? So part of the process of contact, of course, isn't just the technology, it's also expanding consciousness. And of course, the Monroe Institute and Hemisync is all about that. It's about shifting your consciousness into a different space so you become receptive to this whole thing. The other technology, which some of you have tried here, or most of you have tried, is the Lucia light system, which, of course, I think most of you will agree. Have you tried it, Richard? Oh, you all right? Resh tried it. You should yet to try it. I'm interested to know what you both think to that, and how that relates to putting you into a receptive sort of state for doing what we're trying to do. So the main point was to use the technology that's here already and how to put that on top of the whole issue of contact. And this is just a trial. We don't know whether any of that's going to work. It's the whole idea of trying to put this additional consciousness changing technology on top, as well as meditation, as well as remote viewing, and add these other things like Hemisync and the Lucia light system. I think the Lucia light system is hugely powerful, so I think it's an amazing bit of kit. If you put that on top, is that going to increase your propensity for spotting craft or having other anomalous things happen and take place? So that was the main idea of merging the two things to do with the Skywatch and the technology that's here. Okay. I made the point again about should if there are entities out there and intelligences, the point is, what are the things that we do going to make, is it going to matter with how we try and communicate, what sort of methods we use to communicate, and I wanted to make the point that there's actually several cases within the UFO contactee literature where, we've just done an introduction, Steve, so we're a bit behind on all this.
Right.
I'll make a point where actually in the contactee literature you'll find many cases where, because people think, well, is this some relationship where these craft, these UFOs are just simply flying around and not really taking much notice of us down here, and they're here for their own reasons, doing whatever they're doing. But actually they're acutely interested in us as a species. And you'll find many cases, both in the Billy Meyer literature. This is a case of Bob Renault, who was a guy from the 60s that not many people have heard of, but has some fascinating stuff. Both these cases sort of mirror each other in the fact that the ETs make a point of saying that they're monitoring our consciousness. So they come down and they do various tests to monitor consciousness, to check the evolution of us as a species, and they, you constantly find, especially in the Bob Renault case, that they're constantly trying to influence us using their own technology towards having certain dreams to do with encouraging contact, all this sort of thing. So it seems that indeed the ETs are listening and out there and more or less waiting for us to make the move as far as initiating some sort of communication. One thing is this, I wanted to see if Bridget would speak a bit more about that, but this whole idea that when contact takes place, what sort of thing happens, and again, when you go into the C.E.5 documentation, you find that there's this discussion of locked-on contact. So when some engagement takes place between you performing your C.E.5, Skywatch, and these entities, what sort of shift takes place in us? It's not just is there a verbal communication? Is there a different voice in your head? Is it just a feeling? And these are all other things to pay attention to as well. So the shift, from what we've seen so far, the shift into this level of communication, I've made some points here that basically, that was quite an interesting one, and this links into some of the remote viewing stuff that we've been looking into. That a shift is required in how we see the whole idea of communication. So really, again, it's not this straight dialogue as we know. There's going to be some shift, and if you start looking into the whole idea of ETs and telepathy, when contactees are addressed, and you find these dialogues that happen between entities and human beings, then they all describe. If you look at Jim Sparks' case, there's a huge amount of stuff between. It's not just a normal form of communication. So in the case of a saucer turning up and then some sort of contact or lock-on, as they describe it, happening, how does that manifest itself? And the idea that we, as sort of humans that are sort of embedded in ego, have to shift to perhaps some other way of doing things, and we need things like the technology. So just the Lucia Light system or the Hemisync or meditation, all these things can put you into a sort of different mindset to facilitate this communication taking place. And Ingo Swann said that, this is Ingo Swann's the guy who did started off most of the remote viewing stuff and did some fascinating stuff with remote viewing, but made a point that the human mind takes in only 40 million bits per second. Sorry, the human mind takes in 40 million bits per second of information, which only 16 are conscious mind. I don't know where he got that from. I would think it's even less than that, but he must have got that from somewhere. He works with a lot of very high up scientists on the remote viewing stuff. So this method of communication, these methods like remote viewing, are how to slip into that other side where you've got the majority of unconscious or non-local, as quantum physicists call it, how to slip into that and to see a wider spectrum of reality, which is what this is what the stuff that meditation, drugs, all these sort of things can do when you shift from the sort of normal reality. Aldous Huxley discussed this whole idea of filtering. He worked with LSD in the sort of 50s and basically found that the mind had a filter that was enacting. So this is the sort of thing we're trying to deal with to facilitate and amplify this whole idea of sending consciousness out there and conscious intent out there.